It's a real pleasure to be with you. I know Kendal quite well, but I come from the south. So as you know, Kendal is served by 3 separate and independent councils: the County Council, the District Council and the Town Council. I'm not going to say what each one of them does because that would take too long, I think. Each council serves a geographical area, but the one that I'm really interested in is Kendal Town Council, because it's the only one that can focus its work just on the town itself. All 3 councils provide services for your community, and each council is led by individual councillors who are chosen through the elections process to represent the public interest. Councillors are amazing local people who are willing to stand up and make decisions on your behalf. Almost anyone from the age of 18 can be a councillor, but it's more likely that they will find a place on the council if they have the support of a political party. Once they are elected, councillors can be re-elected every 4 years if they wish to continue. Councillors are responsible for deciding which services to provide and how to allocate the money to pay for those services. Most of these high-level decisions are taken by councillors voting for or against a proposal. And each council employs officers who are responsible for carrying out their decisions, and officers can also be relied on to give the council objective advice based on their professional expertise. Of course, each council decides how much money to raise from the council tax. Now, the county and district councils have services that they must by law provide. So the county council must provide social care, for example, and the district council housing and deal with planning. So quite often they are controlled very much by the UK government, and in particular the UK government limits how much council tax the county and the district can raise. So councillors are often faced with some really difficult and challenging decisions about which services to sacrifice. But so far, on the other hand, the town council remains free from this level of government control. It can actually raise as much money as it needs, as long as the community will pay. And it isn't true that town councils can't do much. They might be small. Now, one of my colleagues here on the panel said the words small and mighty, and I agree with that. It's not true that they can't do much, and that's a myth. They cannot act without a specific law that gives them permission to act, but the laws available...
Elisabeth, we're just coming up to the 3 minutes.
Okay, laws available to town councils to take action are extensive. If you want to know what town councils can do to address climate change, look at the websites of Frome Town Council in Somerset and Stroud Town Council in Gloucestershire. If your 3 councils work together in partnership, then they can achieve amazing things, especially in relation to climate change. Very happy to answer more questions later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elisabeth. And I should have said at the beginning that Elisabeth is the academic leader for the Society of Local Council Clerks. So she's got a perspective from different areas of the country as well, as she's just indicated. So thank you very much. That's a really helpful introduction. So I'm going to come on to John Owen next from Kendal Town Council.
Hello folks, it's an absolute privilege to speak to you this evening. I'm going to take you on a very quick romp through an overview of the Town Council and then focus on the brief that you passed through to me and try to make sure that I box that off. So as Elisabeth said, the Town Council sits at the parish council level. There's 28 of us councillors directly elected, and broadly that's a councillor per 1,000 residents, something like that. As Elisabeth also said, we're elected for a 4-year term. Our last election was May 2018. So the next time councillors will either be up for re-election or an opportunity for new councillors to come along, no pressure, is May 2022. Unlike most parish councils, political parties play a role in Kendal Town Council, and as Elisabeth said, it's rare for independents to get in Kendal Town Council. So the The council is currently composed of 26 Liberal Democrats, one councillor from the Green Party, Chris Rowley, and an independent. I'm going to dive into one of your questions. So what education do councillors have around climate change? And broadly, I think the answer is none. However, were you to recommend, I'm going to keep coming back to this, if you recommend it, we'll do it. So if, we've got two organisations that we get our continuing professional development from, the Association of Local Councils and the Local Government Association. And I don't know what they already put on climate change, which is telling. Would it help for councillors to be more educated about climate change? Absolutely it would. Structure of the Town Council, we've got 8 committees. I won't list them, you can find them easily enough on our website, but they give you a sense of what we directly manage in terms of services, and I'll come back to that in a sec. Scale-wise, I Googled this before. Interestingly, we have a £400,000 turnover. The budget, that district, I might be out by £1 million or £2 million. The district have 48 million turnover, and the county council, Paul, I think you're approaching 400 million now, something like that, 385. So I'll go back to Elisabeth's small and mighty bit. And number of officers, only 7, and only one of those is full-time. Directly managed services, allotments, we help out with bins, benches, signage, and we do an awful lot of our work through the other tiers. We involve ourselves in planning, and we're not the statutory organisation that decides on planning, but we do comment on them. Distribute £35,000 worth of grants annually, including to some environmental projects, but not exclusively.
What's statutory, John?
Stuff that one has to do because it's the law. Thanks, Pete. Yeah, cheers. I'll count that as a red card. Your question, does the Town Council have a climate change policy? No, not yet, but recommend one and we'll create one. You asked about who's responsible for cycle lanes and buses. That's the County Council. You asked about a coal mine. That's the County Council. You asked which council's cutting down your trees along the riverside. That's the Environment Agency. And this is not intended to be body swerving those responsibilities. Top 3 things that Kendal Town Council is doing with respect to climate change. Having talked to none of my colleagues, I've come up with this jury. This jury is one of the most significant things for us. Just over a year ago, me and the Green Councillor Chris Rowley came up with a climate emergency motion that went through, and we decided the single most important thing was to establish this jury so that will be the platform for our climate change action plan. The second thing is 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. We're working with the County Council to see whether we can put in place either a blanket area-wide speed limit or an area-wide speed limit excluding the main routes in and out of Kendal. What's that got to do with climate change? There's a strong body of evidence that if streets feel less hostile to vulnerable road users, that's you and me when we're on our bikes, that's you and me when we're walking, that's your children when they're on scooters, then people are less likely to feel like they need to make trips in cars. And
John, there's about half a minute left.
Brilliant, that's great. I'm wrapping up. And the third of the top 3 things the Town Council's doing, we co-invested, put some money into the Kendal Futures Vision for Kendal, which you might have come across. And I think our investment and our involvement in that, there's loads of scope to make to reduce the climate footprint of Kendal through that influence in the Vision for Kendal. I think I'm probably out of time, folks.
That is brilliant. Bob on the second, that was. Sorry, I'm out of control of my timer now. So Dyan, I'd like to come to you next, and I'll start the time. I'll start the timer again.
Actually, that's the hard act to follow, because what I realise I've done is got the wrong end of the stick and done a little narrative, and my bullet points, anticipating I'll get some questions about it. So I'm going to go off script a little bit, so just bear with, please. Okay.
That's fine. Go ahead, Dyan.
Okay. So I'm a ward councillor initially, and that's Windermere. It was Windermere Town before the boundary changes, when it was a single ward division. Now it's 3 of us combined. I'm a portfolio holder That's climate emergency and localism, which used to be environment, and it used to have bins and playgrounds in there, but it's been modified to focus mainly on the climate and building that into everything that we do at council across the cabinet. So there are 4 sections you asked about. Our own operations, this is buildings, waste collection, business travel, parking and land maintenance. In terms of influencing, that will be planning, licensing, business support, housing support, events, car parks, staffing, staff commuting, lobbying national government, working with local organisations such as CAFs. We work collaboratively very successfully. What are we already doing? We have a strategy with an action plan with over 150 action points across the council. This is with the aim to be carbon neutral by 2030 and supporting a district-wide target of 2037. We measure our own carbon footprint each year, and we're working on having a more frequent amount of our emissions measured. We, along with Cumbria County Council, have commissioned, and other districts actually, I mustn't forget about the other districts in the county, we've commissioned Small World Consultancy to calculate Cumbria's carbon footprint in total, and that's to look at emissions and consumption as well. We work with part of the Zero Carbon Cumbria Partnership. That's made up of all the districts and other important people, farmers, all the parks. I think there's nearly 70 members, almost 70 members. Already the things we've done is we've created, well, we've given you some money towards your Citizens Assembly, your jury. We've got a community fund for carbon reduction projects. That's been really well taken up. This is the first time we've done it, and we have struggled to I've persuaded people to make this a priority, even though there's not much spare cash knocking about. You can imagine how strapped it is at the moment. We've an in-depth analysis of SLDC's buildings in terms of energy and renewable energy. We've got PV on as many buildings as we can. We're looking at heat source pumps where they're feasible.
What's PV, Dyan?
Oh, PV, solar panels, photovoltaic, sorry. Thank you. We've done an analysis of all our operational, they call these grey fleet and green fleet, and grey fleet are the wagons and green fleet are the regular vehicles, cars and vans and stuff. For last year and this year, for 2019 and 2020, and we've tried to identify any carbon saving that we can do there, because the footprint of the wagons, you can imagine, is pretty big. They're all diesel operated, so that is an issue. For several years now, they've had flexible working for officers. They can work from home. That's a policy so that staff don't need to come into the office. We've completed analysis, I've mentioned the bin wagons. They've looked at the rounds to make sure that they're absolutely efficient in terms of mileage, speed, efficiency. Transport, not really us, it's county, but we do what we can. Active travel, we support cycling projects. Currently working on the canal regeneration project, hoping that to be eventually cycle friendly, foot friendly from Kendal to Lancaster. SLDC can reduce business rates for businesses that are operating in a more climate friendly way. There are awards, business awards, which a couple of our officers have just awarded. They've just been to those recently. Energy, we've been working with CAFs in Ambleside on
could you just say what CAFs is?
Oh yes, of course. Cumbria Action for Sustainability, and they work right across the county, right across Cumbria. They've just won a lot of money from the Heritage Lottery Fund, so we're going to be working with them a lot more.
About 30 seconds left, Dyan.
Oh, is that all? Oh, and I've
got
a speech all about the things that we're going to do in the future. That's about it, actually. I think I've covered everything. Yeah, we're okay. Challenged by certain things. That's the other thing to plant out there. The planning is an issue. House building. Anyway, I'll stop there.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dyan. So there was a lot to think about there. I'm sure there'll definitely be some questions to come your way. So the last slot is for the County Council, and we've got Paul Haggin, who's the Manager of Development Control, and Tim Gale, who's Senior Policy and Scrutiny Project Officer. So I'm not sure Paul and Tim, how you want to split the 5 minutes between you, but I will hand over to you now.
Thank you, Jenny. Hello, everybody. I'm not a councillor, I'm an officer, and I'm splitting my time with Tim Gale, who's also an officer who will be talking to you in a minute. My responsibilities covers planning and rights of way, but also things such as common registration and other things like historic environment as well. I haven't got the overview that Tim will have, but he's going to give you a rundown of some of the things that we've been involved in. So the County Council is quite a big hitter, really. We've got 6,000 people that we employ across the county, 84 councillors, and as John said before, a budget of getting up to £400 million or thereabouts. We're responsible for things like the education service, so we run schools, teachers, social services, things like care homes, trading standards, the highways, including cycleways, surface water drainage, waste management, libraries, the fire service, and the minerals and waste schemes that we have. So from a planning perspective, we cover those. And I was intimately involved, whether it's a good thing or not, in the decision about West Cumbria mining, which you might have a few questions about later on. So that's why I'm here, really. So over to Tim. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much for the invite to this session tonight. I think what I'll try and do is just quickly run through some of the current action around climate change. My role is in policy. I'm the policy and environment lead for the County Council. So we've done some very measurable things. I'll run through those. That's things like we've saved 70% of our carbon emissions through LED streetlight replacement. We've seen about a 25% reduction in emissions from our staff travel, and that's pre-COVID. So I'm sure that will be an awful lot more now. We are lead organisation on the local nature recovery strategy. We've also saved, or looking to save, I should say, about 50% from our corporate buildings from energy. We've already made a significant reduction, about 20%, so we're looking to build further on that. We've got a strong history of producing carbon management plans and climate change strategy. Our first one we produced was in 2009 for the County Council. We were then one of the lead organisations that took forward a county-wide climate strategy in 2012. And we're looking to continue that process. We also funded and started some of the sustainable community projects some time ago now that have evolved into some of the community groups I'm sure you'll all be familiar with now. We've also, tonight it's been mentioned about the Zero Carbon Cumbria partnership. I currently work with that group. We have indeed just secured £2.5 million over the next 5 years to deliver a climate change work programme across the county, across all sectors, looking to achieve a net zero carbon position by 2037. So that's a really exciting piece of work. And the thing that excites me most about that, I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear, is that is going to be a community-led programme, which will demand from local authorities to work with community groups in a very different way. And there'll be very much a sort of co-designed approach to projects rather than writing and consulting in the traditional way, which I think is a huge step forward. The other couple of things I wanted to mention very quickly within the 5 minutes is something in my mind.
There's about a minute left, Tim.
Okay, thank you, Jenny. Yeah, something in my mind at the moment that I think has been touched on by Elisabeth in the first presentation was the tiering that we have currently in local government. Now that could potentially change, as a lot of you will know, through local government reorganisation. I think if that does, one thing we need to be very conscious of is building in a strong future for climate change policy and strategy writing going forward, but most of all maintaining and improving how we work with community groups. So potentially could be a bigger organisation, but we must make sure we maintain those links. And the other thing, linking back to the lottery funded programme, is that I would hope that this jury could be replicated across the county, and I think that would give real strength to the work of the Zero Carbon Cumbria partnership and that lottery funded programme. As I said, it's community led, and I would hope that given Cumbria's unique geography and unique issues in different parts of the county, that the climate change voice would be very strong through those juries as they develop and can connect into that climate change partnerships work.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tim. That was great.